right, good afternoon, morning, or evening, or whenever it is that you are watching this video today. Today, we are going to look at our week 1 challenge. Our week 1 challenge was, ready to know? Are you ready to know? If you didn't already get the workbook here, I will tell you what our week 1 challenge was. Now, I actually asked you to do this in your email, so you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. So let me go ahead and refresh your memory what week 1 challenge was. The first thing that we needed to do was create a limited color palette. So I did that using some of the artwork that I chose from my last year's collection, and this year I decided to go ahead and use the same colors and show you how I would actually use the paint, and I would use the Crayola, and I would also use my water-soluble markers. So you probably have been keeping up with how I have done that, and it's really an easy trick. So I've already created my limited color palette, so that was challenge number 1. And well, actually challenge number 1 was going and introducing yourself to our free group, which is Art a Day Challenge. So if you don't want to be in a free group, the challenge for you, the actual art challenge, the first art challenge is working with a limited color palette. So create your limited color palette. And then we went on a field trip. Then I asked you to go on a field trip and look for 3 of the different flowers that was from week number 1. So week number 1, our first flower was the dogwood blossom. Our second one was anemone, and then the third one was ranunculus. And if you've been kind of keeping up with me throughout Folk City Art and Art a Day Challenge, you've been watching me create with the dogwood flower and also the ranunculus. We did some really fun tricks on the ranunculus using crayons over an Art a Day Challenge on Wednesday night on March 23rd. Yes, March 23rd. So you can go back and look at that. If you need to go back and check the date, March 23rd, 2022, in Art a Day Challenge, I showed you how to do a crayon version of ranunculus. Now today I'm going to show you how I'm creating the last challenge of the week, which was to do a 1, 2, 3 of the same flower to kind of create like a line, or use 3 flowers. So our bonus week was using the weekly tip shared in video number 1, sketch out and then complete your own, on your own preferred surface, a trio of flat petaled blossoms using only half of your limited color palette. And don't forget to show your work. And show your work over in the free group if you want to get extra credit. That's your bonus. So I am going to lean you down here. I am working with anemone. Now you're going to see in the background, I have a really cool tulip. Now we're going to be working on tulip in week number 2. Actually, week number 2, we're not only going to be working on tulip, we're going to be working on daffodil, we're going to be working on iris, and then tulip. So I'm going to be using tulip throughout the week on Folk City Art with Char, and also in the Art a Day Challenge. So this is from our Summer Art Fest of 2021. So if you would like that design, you'll be getting this design at the end of this mini series. So, all right. That would be one of the designs that you get at the end of this mini series. Okay, so I'm going to lean you down. Hopefully you can see my table. I think that's most important. I'm using a water-soluble marker. Good old-fashioned Crayola brand crayon water-soluble marker. So I am working on the anemone. So the anemone is a really pretty flower, and if you went on your field trip through Google or Bing.com, those are both really great search engines, you probably saw that anemone is a cute looking flower. It's very simple looking. but it, like all flowers, sometimes it has a single layer of petals, sometimes it has a double, sometimes it has a triple layer of petals. Now, the anemone that you probably saw on your field trip was a double layer of petals, which basically is 10. And the way that they are formed in nature is kind of like a star shape. So it's like a pentagram or pentacle, whatever it's called. So it's like a 5-pointed flower. And then the other layer of flowers, they just kind of sort of juxtapose themselves just a little bit off center. And there's another layer of 5 petals, kind of like in a star shape. So this is very simple, very, very simple rendering of an anemone. And I'm going to show you how to do the basics of it just using your marker. So I've already got my 3 here. In one color, I'm using brown. And that is actually part of my limited color palette. Let me see if I can pull this up. I'm on a field trip. I'm going to pull up my images from Google, and I'm going to look at an anemone. And you can too if you prefer. Let's see. I'm going to pull up the pink ones. Widen my screen so I can see a whole bunch of different anemones. Now, one of the things that you're going to learn about an anemone is that right in the very center of the flower, you have the stamen, which looks kind of like a dark, kind of like black, solid mass of a kind of like a dome shape, if you would, of a almost like a conical type stamen, where all of the seeds are. Whenever the anemone dries out, that's where the seeds are. Now, right around the big dome shape, there is a ringlet, and you can just kind of stipple around. There is a ringlet of seeds. And just to kind of express that there are seeds there, you just kind of go around and around and around and around and around. And you can use your ultra fine brush, or you can use a pencil, you can use a marker like I'm using, and they just go around and around, and kind of let them kind of go in and out just a little bit, because sometimes they fall off, or sometimes they have like a little mind of their own, but they have like, it's just a cluster of seeds. Now, if you wanted to take your pencil or your micron pen or your ultra fine pen and just kind of radiate out all the way around with some line back to the center of the flower, you will have, you'll see kind of like the little extension of the seeds. So I'll show that to you right there. So it looks kind of like they're kind of holding on, like they have like this little tendril that's holding on to the seeds there. Okay. And then you will, I'm using a marker, so forgive my mistakes. You can use pencil if you want, and then come back with your palette, your color palette, and do that. So it creates kind of like this little buttercup like feel to it. So depending on if it's a little bit more closed or if it's more open. Now, the challenge that I gave you was a flat open petal, so you can actually make it flat open and petally, kind of like I did here. And I exaggerated the oblong shape of the petal. I exaggerated it so you could just see the actual shape. But the actual shape of the anemone petal is kind of like a, let me draw it for you. It's kind of like, let me see if I can get it to focus. It's kind of like, let me see if I can get it to focus. It's kind of like, let me see if I can get it to focus. It's kind of like a, 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 this. Okay, that's the actual shape of the anemone petal. And then it, of course, has like some graining through the petal. If you want to add that, you can. Now, I like to add that with my marker, because with my marker, if I wanted to, I can smear those together with water and it will have like a nice look. So I would actually pull the line here of this water soluble marker. I would pull the line in and then pull the graining up with the water right through there. So it actually has like a really interesting look. So that would be your petal. Now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of make like a star. So we're going to put 5 out, and they do not have to be equilateral. Okay, but we're just going to put 5 points all the way around the flower, and we're going to very gracefully take our shape of our petal there and turn it inside. So we're basically, I'll show you that one more time. So from here to there. So from here to there. And just kind of bring it together just like that. And again, make like a little soft U there. And then your petal. And then again. And it has kind of like a wide little hip, and it's okay if it goes out like that. It's so okay like that, because petals, the way that they will turn and contour and this and that, it's okay if it kind of looks a little stumpy there, because you can come back and you can give it like a little bit of contouring to make it look like it just folded that way. So again, then we're going to pretend like we drew it. And then we're going to pretend like we drew it. Pretend like we drew it. And then so we have like a 10 petaled anemone. So that's basic. This is the very, very basics of an anemone. The line drawing look of it. And again, the veining, if you wanted to put the veining in, some people call it veining, I call it graining. It's like a little grain, like a grain line, like you would have a grain line in your textiles. If you are a seamstress or a sewer, you know about grain lines. So you can just go like that. A little bit down here, a little bit down here, a little bit down here. And then with your limited color palette, let's say that we wanted to do this in pink, and I'm just showing you my marker technique. And we're going to hope that I actually have a brush around here. Thank goodness I do. We'll have a brush around here. So let's see what color we might want to do this in. Shall we do it in red? Let's do it in red. That's one of my color palettes. So we're just going to give it like a little bit of a wiggle here and a little bit of wiggle there. Again, with the graining right through here. And the red that I'm using is just that red, okay? And you can, it's gonna actually be more pink because I'm going very light with it. but with the just kind of giving a little bit of hash marks, making some marks throughout. Those kind of cross-hatched a little bit. That's okay. It's okay if it's just a tiny bit messy. We're going to take our water to this. Go up here. Now I'm on bristle board, which is very similar to poster board. So I am going to grab a brush. Preferably when I am doing this technique, I've never used this brush before. Okay, preferably whenever I'm using this technique, I am using a small filbert. I have a very large filbert, or a flat brush. Have just a little bit of water left over in my drinking water. All right, so we're going to dab off because we don't want to soak the paper. And we're going to go ahead with our red, and we will just blend those colors together. Right there in on the paper. Let's blend those together first. It's okay if some of the white shows. Let's blend, blend, blend. Again, this is going to kind of have like a pink look to it. That was part of the reason why I chose this color palette, is because some of it is pink, some of it is red. If you would like to use the same color palette that I am using, please let me know. You can send me a message, or well, you could send me a message. That would be probably the fastest way to let me know that you want to use my color palette. I have done a couple of videos on how I chose my colors, and that might help you with your own version of your own palette. So again, I talk about don't overwork your water, and you're going to come up with some really cool effects. So right through there, you can kind of see how it's blending together. I'm going to let that dry just a little bit. Now, if you're using a paper that has like a nice gloss on it, kind of like a what I have below me, I'll show you in just a minute. It's a acrylic and oil medium paper from Canson, and it has like a poly coating on top of it, which really helps the oil not to seep through too much into the paper. It really helps it. You can actually use alcohol, just regular rubbing alcohol, for your solvent. I'm using water for my solvent of these markers because my markers are water soluble. They're going to blend in water or anything pretty much that's wet. They would even blend if you added like, you know, oil or something to them, but I suggest just using the water if your paper can handle the water. And My brush is just barely wet. I'm dabbing it off and just pulling a little bit of that color, leaving some of the white. Dab. And then you can just pull that brown from the edge, the perimeter of the flower, just pull it down into the flower so it softens the edge. You can give it a little wiggle. One of the best parts about painting, when you're painting by yourself, sometimes it can be very relaxing. Just let some of that water do the work for you, so you don't have to overwork things. Sometimes those blooms are really cool. Even if they go outside of the line, it can create some really great looking effects in your art. So this is one way that I use mixed media in my art, as I love using markers, water soluble markers, and I like doing some really cool water effects or blooming effects with the medium kind of running together. I kind of really dig it. You can use any color just about that you choose in your color palette for anemone, and you probably would still find it in nature, because anemone comes in so many different colors, from vibrant fuchsias to electric greens, blacks and whites. I mean, it's just a really versatile spring flower. You can leave a lot of that white still there if you wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and blend it in. And just kind of scrub those colors together. And now this is the part that I tell people all the time. You need to kind of walk, at some point you're going to have to walk away from what it is that you're doing and let it dry. If you're working with if you're working with water media, walk away from it for a little while, let it dry, and then you can come back, and if you want to take your micron pen or your I'm just going to add just a little bit of topical highlight to the top so it has a little bit of depth in there. Walk away from it, leave it flat, let it dry, and then you can come back with, say, your micron pen or your illustration markers, your ultra fine illustration markers, and then you can kind of pull out some of the details that are in it. Okay. If you feel like you have some run togethers that you don't really want to run together, you can take a dry brush and you can just kind of pull some of that water off. It'll just suck it right up. But for me, I'm happy with it going kind of in this direction, and I know that I can come back and it's probably going to look a little bit different, and then I can take my illustration pen or I can take my pencil, and then I can kind of go in and I can add some more, maybe I want to add some more veining or graining to it. This is just me with a pencil, just right over a petal, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and adding in some line work right there just to kind of give it a little bit more detail. You can certainly do that. Okay, so that is Anemone. That was, you can use any one of our flowers that we did this week, or if you're feeling kind of froggy and you want to go ahead and do all 3 of the flowers that we had this week and do them in a series of a trio series, do that. Your call to action this week was to post into the group Art a Day challenge. If you want the little bonus, little shout out bonus, go ahead and post into the group. And guys, I am so excited. I'm so excited that you are participating. I see that some of you are just you're emailing me back, you're messaging me some of your flowers that you've been doing and asking some questions about where what you should do next. And I'm just so excited to be a part of your experience here with Spring Symposium 2022. So again, keep those questions coming, and I look forward to seeing what you do in week number 2. Bye-bye.